approved by this House to be the seers of youth, creative economy, sports. I just want to look at the youth right now, who are part and parcel of you, because I've seen your CV, you are part of Millennium. And then the army you have talked about called GENZ. What new programs you will bring on board to accommodate them to work with you in this ministry?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable MURKOMEN, my issue is about land for sports. If you move around Kenya, you find a lot of development. And even when you go around our counties and constituencies, we want to grow the talent of youth in either athletics or even other sports, whether it's rugby, football, hockey. But there are no pitches. People build everything, and then the youth, sometimes they play on the road. So going forward, I want to ask you if you will come up with even a cabinet paper or a white paper to suggest that counties or even constituencies must put so much land available so that you can develop pitches, small stadia, not necessarily the big stadiums that will cost a lot of money. And finally, Marsabit and other projects that are actually by schedule have closed out youth, because those stadiums cannot be used because they are under construction. Partially they are developed, and those structures, if they are going to be used, might collapse and cause unnecessary deaths. Maybe you can comment on that. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Answer those nominee.
Mr. Speaker, starting with Honorable Owen, there is marginalization of a number of regions, especially the ASAL areas, when it comes to stadia. Mr. Speaker, I agree with Honorable Owen.
Kilifi is not ASAL.
It is. Part of Kilifi is ASAL, Mr. Speaker.
Not ASAL.
Okay. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, in the northern part of the coast, there was already a proposal that Shanzu should have a big stadium, and that proposal is ongoing. It was even meant to be part of the African Cup of Nations preparation, but Mr. Speaker will follow up. But also in Kilifi itself, we need to work together to make sure we achieve this. I think the key thing is, let's have an updated sports policy that says what is the standard of a stadium you have in a county, and which other pitches, including community training grounds, can be established, so that then, and which are going to be done by counties and what can be done by national government. And even after they have been constructed, what is the maintenance policy? Who is going to maintain? I think that once we have that policy, we have a way of sustaining those facilities. And Mr. Speaker, I totally agree with Honorable Mbui that the capitation, the problem is that we consider physical education, sports, Mr. Speaker, as a luxury, as an additional activity which can be done or not be done. We forget that that can be the quickest way of developing our people. Mr. Speaker, I think we need to have a serious conversation with the Ministry of Education to make sure that we support sports activities deliberately. Luckily, the sports fund has been supporting sports activities like the National Football Championship. Sports fund has been chipping in, but we need a structured way. In fact, in some countries, the Ministry of Sports would be combined together with education as one ministry, with one department being the sports, for structured working relationship between the two departments. And I think even without that being structured to be one ministry, we need to work together with one government to see how sports is going to, how we are going to use our education institutions. By the way, I saw yesterday a number of Olympic winners, swimming and so forth, are in various schools in Europe. You know, they keep, the commentator is saying, oh, this one has gone to this school in Europe, that's gone to this school in Europe, this is a student in this university. This should be the case. Schools and the university should be the breeding ground for our talents, and that is where they should be located. Mr. Speaker, on the delegation going to international sports, I think that my ministry will take, if I am approved, Mr. Speaker, my office will take a serious, Mr. Speaker, concern and make sure that we follow through the list of the people who are traveling, so that essential people can only travel. And if there are extra people who want to travel at their own cost, there is no problem. I also very careful not to call people joyriders, because I saw a friend of mine was being accused of having gone to Paris with their daughter, only to find out that he didn't travel using public money and the daughter didn't travel using public money. So sometimes we must get the facts. Usually MPs...
The most offensive one was when people called Kipchoge Keino a joyrider to Rio.
It
the
is
father of our athletics. In fact, if you are confirmed, you should guarantee this country to buy Keino a ticket to go to every Olympics until he gives up.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. What people don't realize also is that some of the officials go to the Olympics not to just go and watch. That is where you are scouting for potential investors in the area and partnerships. So there are people who go with specific roles to ensure that you engage in improving and getting investors. Some of the members of parliament also travel to these international games because they provide their oversight responsibility, but also they appreciate what's happening. When they come back here, they are able also to pass necessary laws and support the budgets for those athletes. So it is not always obvious, rather obvious, that everybody is a joyrider, but we will make sure that there are no joyriders using public resources. Remember also, Mr. Speaker, that some countries pay for their funds. They pay for the people who are going, the cheering squad. But Mr. Speaker, because of our limitation of resources, we need to work. We need to work with the private sector to sponsor them. Our big corporations should be able to sponsor the people who are going to cheer our teams, because it's also important to go with a cheering squad if it's necessary. Mr. Speaker, on the question of Honorable Mule, I am very happy that he is asking a very pertinent question. In the youth sector, what am I going to do differently to make sure that our youth get jobs? First, let me say this, Mr. Speaker, it's an embarrassment that as a country, and this should collectively prick our conscience, that the budget for youth department, for core functions of the youth department, for an entire year is 51 million shillings. That is a shame, Mr. Speaker. In fact, when I was looking at the budget, I was asking myself, am I being set up to just go and sit in an office where you are not going to deliver anything to the youth of this country? How you budget is demonstrating your priorities, because if you really want to sort out youth issues, we must put resources for youth resources. You will remember, Mr. Speaker, after the post-election violence is when a serious discussion, and you were part of the negotiating team for the coalition government and for peace. You remember one of the discussion was, what are we going to do with the youth? And that's how Mzee Kibaki's government came up with Youth Fund, and they came up also with National Youth Council, and they came up with all those youth initiatives. You remember, Mr. Speaker, the youth ministry at that time had about 10 billion for implementing projects. Now the youth department has 51 million shillings. What happened to us? Because in 2013, when we lumped together the youth ministry with public service, the whole resources were channeled to National Youth Service. And then we forgot about the other core functions that are affecting the youth. This department has moved with 8 PSS within 10 years, Mr. Speaker. And so it has not had a proper institutional memory of implementation. Mr. Speaker, that is one area that we must fix the resources. Number two, there is a program, luckily, Mr. Speaker, that is supported by the World Bank, that's called Nyota. Its intention is to make sure that it reaches 19 years old up to 28 who have not gone past Form 4 in terms of recognition of their skills, improving of their skills, and attaching them to a specific work environment, and thereafter supporting some of them to do businesses. Mr. Speaker, that program is huge. It's about 20-something billion shillings in 5 years. I am going to be prudent in terms of managing and making sure that it achieves the objective of reaching 800,000 young people across the country. I ask members of parliament that we work together to make sure that the identification of the beneficiaries is per constituency, because the constituencies are the most equitable units at the country. The other thing, Mr. Speaker, we must do, and I was prepared to do that in the roads ministry. We must do what President Roosevelt did. After the Great Depression, between 1933 and 1938, President Roosevelt came up with something called the New Deal. The New Deal was to work on deliberate mechanism of finding jobs through government projects for young people. And the plan was to make sure that when they were building the beltways, the airports, the postal corporations, the bridges, they made sure that they infused in the contracts the number of young people that are going to be employed. I will suggest, Mr. Speaker, that in our road contracts, if you give a contractor, say, 100 million worth of a contract, we must tell that contractor, infused in this contract, you will employ 100 youth in that locality for 3 years. And we must be deliberate, even if it means adding the amount to the contract of and above. If we do that, Mr. Speaker, in railway contracts, in the port contracts, the airport contracts, road contracts, we are going to deliberately deal with the people of Kenya. If we are going to give out contracts to everybody to maximize profit, those people will use machines. What has happened, Mr. Speaker, in places like Kericho? Because of the introduction of machines, there are so many jobless young people in Kericho and other places like Limuru and other tea growing areas. We must tamper the need for profit by deliberately getting a new deal for young people in this country that are going to get jobs directly. The last thing I want to say is that there are fragmented initiatives that target young people. You will find that the AGPO, the program that is ensuring that contracts go to young people, is being managed by Treasury. There, the Treasury only see the registration of the company as a young person. They don't even realize that this young person is just a facade. You have another initiative in ICT that is called Ajira. You have another initiative in Public Service Commission that is called internship. So all these initiatives are fragmented. What we are going to do in the Ministry of Youth, if I'm approved, is to make sure that there is oversight. These all initiatives across ministries are going to be reported to the Ministry of Youth so that we can collect them and we make sure the oversight and make sure that we force all government ministries, departments and agencies to make sure in their performance contracting they report annually how many youth are benefited from the programs and with clear statistics of where the youth are found. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of Honorable Raso, I agree with him that we need to establish, and again it goes to the policy, that what kind of study are you going to build in different parts of the country, and we must make sure that is why the absence here is the disjointed relationship between the national government and county government, because there is no intergovernmental framework under the law that makes sure that we work together to establish those community training grounds and the issue of stadium. The issue of Marsabit Stadium, Mr. Speaker, I will make sure that I follow up personally. I was really wishing to go to Marsabit as a Minister of Roads and Transport because we have some airstrips we were working on there, and also we are open to the Lapset corridor. We want to put ICD there. So, Mr. Speaker, I will go now. I will go now, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of this ministry, if I'm approved, to make sure that the stadium is completed.
We want you to shift your hat from roads to youth and sports if you are confirmed.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, but as a cabinet secretary, you still have the responsibility of supporting
I know there is
the rest of government.
responsibility, but don't live in nostalgia. Let's have now, yes, Junet?
Point, when we are looking at the suitability of a nominee, we also look at his commitment to the work he's going for. So I wanted to ask, your removal from roads transport to Ministry of Sports Youth, do you see it as a demotion?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, there is a committee of ministries. Mr. Speaker, when I was in roads and transport, I never at any point thought that my colleague in youth and creative economy and sports was a lesser minister than myself. So I don't see any ministry to be different from the other.
Sharia?
Thank you.
One question, Mishi, one question, Rahab,
Yes.
one question.
Thank you. Let me just add, as everyone was talking about Stadia, Mheshimiwa, we don't have any Stadia in Northeastern Province, 0. So you better add that into your list. There's no sports.
Meshi?
I think we do better than, I haven't even asked my question, sir. My question. That was just a comment.
I told you to stop preambles to questions.
Mr. Speaker, if everybody spoke for their region and I don't say that, I'll be killed once I leave here.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa MURKOMEN, youth employment and job creation. Matrix requires concerted efforts, including mainstreaming of the issues in all ministry policies, rather than youth ministry as a standalone solution point. So what is your take and what measures will you champion to achieve this complete mainstreaming in all ministries to push the agenda of youth? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Mishi.
Asante Mheshimiwa Mwenyekiti. Mheshimiwa Mwenyekiti, nimemsikiza Mheshimiwa MURKOMEN ambaye pengine anaweza kuwa waziri wa vijana na michezo. Lakini nataka nimregeshe nyuma wakati akiwa waziri wa mambo ya barabara na uchukuzi. Sisi kama watu wa Likoni kupitia bunge niliuliza swala la kivuko cha Mtongwe na tukaweka pesa ambayo ilikuwa ijenge kivuko cha Mtongwe cha feri. Rampu hiyo ilijengwa kidogo tu, yani kama mbeni mfano tu wa kujenga. Baada ya kuweka mamilioni ya pesa. Mpaka leo ferry channel, kwa wale ambao hawajui Kiswahili, Mtongwe ferry channel. Mpaka leo kivuko kile hakifanyi kazi, wakazi wa Mtongwe wanataabika sana kuvuka kwenda katika ngambo ya pili. Vile vile ile floating bridge ambayo ilikuwa pale iliyotengezwa kwa milioni 300 ilikuja ikakatizwa kwa ghafla bila kuita wananchi kuwaeleza kumeenda vipi ama kumekwenda vipi. Sasa mimi nauliza, umezungumza maneno matamu ya kumtoa nyoka pangoni, lakini kusema sio kutenda. Unaweza kusema na ikawa ni mkono mtupu au rambwi. Mimi nataka nimuulize waziri, utatutibishia vipi ya kwamba haya ulioyasema hazitakuwa ahadi za urongo kama zile ulizoahidi kupitia wizara yako kwa watu wa Likoni, na mpaka leo wanalia hakuna floating bridge iliyekwa wakati wa regime ya nyuma, sasa hakuna tena, kivuko cha Mtongwe hakuna. Mwisho tupe tathmini ya talanta hela. Asante Mwenyekiti.
Oka amekatalia pangoni. Yes,
thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Rahab.
Yeah, to the nominee, I don't know whether you are aware that most of the constituencies, we don't have youth officers for the last 5 to 7 years. And I'm sure you need those youth officers because they'll help you to go on the ground and do mapping and know exactly what is happening on the ground. Honorable Speaker, I've also received another question from your friend, Honorable MURKOMEN. They are asking, if you are confirmed, what are you going to do to gain their confidence, your youth? Thank you.
Nominee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me start with Honorable Shuria. First of all, youth, no, I agree first that there are no stadia in the, as I said earlier, in the arid and semi-arid areas. When I was doing the tournament last year, Mr. Speaker, Turkana players were playing on a sand pitch, Mr. Speaker. It's very disheartening to see how marginalization is being perpetuated. And I think we need to correct that, to give facilities to young people in the arid and semi-arid areas. And I have been deliberate, even in the Ministry of Roads, to make sure that arid and semi-arid areas are also taken care of. Mr. Speaker, on the question of youth mainstreaming, I agree with Honorable Shuria also that we shouldn't talk about youth only to be confined to youth department. or the youth ministry. It is a mainstreamed issue across the board. And that's why I said earlier that the youth ministry itself should provide oversight whether the other departments of government are achieving the objective of creating employment and creating opportunities for young people to do business and making sure that they are given access to have a voice. Mr. Speaker, part of those initiatives that were done after post-election violence by the second term of President Kibaki was to have a National Youth Council, which has never been operationalized up to now. I participated in the youth agenda in the whole conversation about how to operationalize the National Youth Council. I want to promise the people of Kenya that we are going to give the young people of Kenya a voice to elect their own leaders from grassroots to national level, so that then the objective of National Youth Council is going to be achieved where they will have their own leaders elected by themselves. Part of the reasons why young people are in the streets protesting is because they feel that they are not being involved in decision making, or they have no voice, they have no channels of releasing that which they would like to give to the country. And I don't want tokenism in this case. They must also be part of the decision making. Mr. Speaker, when I got any opportunity to appoint board members in the previous ministry where I was, Mr. Speaker, without being nostalgic, I made sure that youth were in every agency that I appointed. In fact, in some of them, like the Kenya Railway, there are more than 2. If you go to Kenya Ports Authority, we appointed a 26-year-old board member. And these are big corporations that people think that young people should not be sitting there. I made sure that there was a deliberate effort to mentor. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Mukame has asked a question. Can the youth of Kenya trust me to lead them? They should trust me because of my track record. My track record, Mr. Speaker, in the previous ministry speaks for itself. My track record as a senator speaks for itself. My track record as a mentor. I have mentored people, Mr. Speaker, who have become members of parliament.
That is what you started with.
Leaders and MCAs. No, but the question was asked that how do they trust me? They should trust me because I have mentored young people until some have accessed higher positions of governance in this country. And if they got a minister that they should be proud of, and they will be seeing it is Kipchumba Murkomen.
If you are confirmed.
Yeah, if I'm confirmed. Mr. Speaker, on the question of Honorable Mishi, ningependa kusema
ajibu Kiswahili kile sanifu watu wangu pia waelewe.
Bwana Speaker, tumetenda
Kiswahili sanifu or the opposite.
Bwana Speaker, tumetenda kazi nyingi sana katika poti ya Mombasa, na nilianzia hapo awali wakati niliposema tumeimarisha biashara katika poti ya Mombasa. Sasa hivi uongozi wa poti ya Mombasa mkurugenzi,
kwa nini hukumaliza kivuko cha Mtongwe?
Ndio nakuja
kwa nini floating bridge ilitolewa?
Ndio ninasema hivyo Bwana Speaker. Kuimarisha utendakazi katika poti ya Mombasa ilikuwa pamoja na kuondoa ile floating bridge yenye ilikuwa pale, kwa sababu ilikuwa inapoteza masaa 8 ya biashara katika poti ya Mombasa. Ukisikia kwamba biashara kwa poti ya Mombasa imeinuka, ni kwa sababu tulitoa zile vikwazo ambazo zilikuwa zinatufanya tusifikie malengo yetu kama wizara ya uchukuzi. Na kwa hivyo kuna mara nyingine lazima uhakikishe ya kwamba unaangalia faida yenye inatokezea kwa watu wote wa Likoni, sio wachache. Ya pili, Bwana Speaker, tumeharakisha ile barabara ambayo ni Southern Bypass yenye inaweza kufukisha wananchi kupitia Dongo Kundu bila kutumia ile bridge. Ya tatu, Bwana Speaker, nilisafiri na Mheshimiwa Rais tukahakikisha kwamba tutaanzisha ile bridge ya Likoni Bridge, mpango kubwa sana ambayo itabadilisha maisha ya watu ya Likoni na Mombasa. Na kwa hivyo Mtongwe Bridge ferry, Bwana Speaker, kweli ni kweli kwamba tumeanza kazi, na ninaamini ya kwamba wale wamebaki pale watahakikisha wamemaliza yenye imebaki. Bwana Speaker, nakubaliana na Mheshimiwa Mishi kwamba kusema si kutenda, na ni ukweli kwamba Bwana Speaker, nilitenda mengi bila kusema. Ni wazi ya kwamba wewe na naibu speaker Mheshimiwa Gladys Sholei mlisema wazi ya kwamba makosa kubwa ya serikali hii ni kwamba hatujatangaza vilivyo yale yote ambayo tumetenda. Kwa hivyo kwa sababu nimepata nafasi hii, hayo ni baadhi ya mambo ambayo tumetenda katika wizara hiyo. Bwana Spika, Bwana Spika.
Kwanza uvoda mwenyekiti.
Bwana Spika.
Mwenyekiti, nataka hapa ieleweke kwa sababu huu mradi wa floating bridge haukufanyika kitambo, na ukumbuke ulitumia milioni 300. Sasa ukisema muliitoa tu kwa mambo mengine, wakati ilipokuwa inatekelezwa hamkufikiria hizo milioni 300 za Wakenya zimepotea tu kiholela.
Bwana Spika, ni kweli kwamba tumepoteza milioni 300, lakini tumetengeneza bilioni ngapi? Tumeongeza faida ya poti kwa bilioni 10. Ukilinganisha milioni
faida au mapato?
Mapato. Tuseme but it's faida because it's the difference between the 60 billion we raise and the amount that is Mr. Speaker, I didn't want to call it profit, but yes, if you really want to call it profit, it's profit by 10 billion shillings. And so to chase 300 million at the expense of 10 billion, it was a wise decision to make sure that you do away with that floating bridge for the benefit. Mr. Speaker, Mheshimiwa aliuliza talanta hela.
Yes.
Hii ni kusema kwamba tuko tayari kubadilisha talanta yako ikupatie hela, na ni kwa njia nyingi, kwa kuweza kuanzisha katika mashinani yale miradi ambayo yatahakikisha kwamba kuna mchipuko, Bwana Spika, ya michezo hali mbalimbali, pia ya kuhakikisha kwamba tumeleta teknolojia kusaidia kuhakikisha kwamba Wakenya ambao wako na talanta wanaweza kutangaza talanta yao na kuweza kupata hela kwa mifuko yao, Bwana Spika, kulingana na ile bottom up economic transformation agenda ya serikali hii. Bwana Spika, mwisho ningependa kusema yale maswali ya Mheshimiwa Rehab Mukami, that we don't have the youth officers. It is true. As I told you, the youth department has been neglected. And even where we have youth officers, they are not utilized. Because if you have 51 million to run your core projects across the country, it is evident that you are not going to be able to utilize those people. There was a request already that has been made to Treasury to support programs for youth. And also because of this Nyota program that we are going to start, we will need these youth officers in every constituency to be replaced and to be supported to make sure that they can do the work that they need to do. What are you giving to do there? To gain the confidence, Mr. Speaker. There is no other way. There is no other way of gaining confidence except to work.
I've already answered that.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
We're going towards the end. Deputy Speaker.
Honorable Murkomen, I just want some undertaking from you. One is the World Championships, which were held in 2025 in Tokyo, was supposed to actually have been held in Kenya, but we lost the bid because all our stadiums, including Kasarani, did not meet the international standard. Right now, because you're building, the stadiums are being refurbished, assure us that you will ensure that we bid for the 2027, or 2029 or 2032, at least in our lifetime, because it was sad that we actually lost this. Also, and I will volunteer to help you do the bidding documents, because I'm good at that. Number two...
In what capacity? He has not been confirmed.
As a pro bono, if he's confirmed. Pro bono if he's confirmed. Also, one other suggestion, the reason why Nigeria, Nollywood is very successful is because they have a law that provides that 70% of their content in their local television stations are local. That's how Nollywood grew. Also, there is a question here by a GENZ. Let me just look at that question.